The year was 2003, and Operation Iraqi Freedom was underway. Captain Ethan Hayes of the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division had been deployed to Iraq for nearly 6 months. The desert heat was merciless, and the ever-present threat of insurgent attacks weighed heavily on his mind. Yet, amidst the chaos, Ethan remained focused. He was a soldier, and this was his duty. Ethan had grown up in a small town in Ohio, the son of a factory worker and a schoolteacher. He joined the Army at 18, driven by a mix of patriotism and a desire to see the world beyond his quiet hometown. Now, at 32, he was a seasoned officer, respected by his men for his calm demeanor and sharp instincts. His unit had been tasked with securing a strategic outpost near Fallujah. Intelligence suggested that insurgents were using the area to launch attacks on coalition forces. The mission was straightforward on paper: clear the area, establish control, and hold the position. But in war, nothing was ever simple. The convoy rolled out at dawn, the hum of engines breaking the morning silence. Ethan sat in the lead Humvee, scanning the horizon through his binoculars. Beside him was Sergeant Marcus Reed, a no-nonsense soldier who had been with Ethan since their first deployment to Afghanistan. "Keep your eyes open," Ethan said, lowering the binoculars. "This road's too quiet." Reed nodded. "Roger that, sir." Feels like the calm before the storm. As the convoy approached the outpost, the tension grew. The landscape was barren, dotted with crumbling buildings and patches of dry vegetation. Ethan's instincts screamed that something was wrong, but there was no turning back. They had a mission to complete. The first explosion came without warning. A roadside bomb detonated near the second vehicle in the convoy, sending a plume of smoke and debris into the air. Chaos erupted as the soldiers scrambled to respond. Ethan grabbed his radio, barking orders. "Ambush. Take cover and return fire." Insurgents emerged from the ruins, their weapons trained on the convoy. Bullets ricocheted off the armored vehicles as the soldiers fought to regain control. Ethan leapt from the Humvee, his rifle at the ready. He fired at the attackers, his training kicking in as adrenaline coursed through his veins. Reed was beside him, shouting over the gunfire. "They've got us pinned down, sir. We need to move." Ethan assessed the situation quickly. The insurgents had the high ground, and the convoy was exposed. He spotted a cluster of buildings nearby and made a decision. "Reed, take your team and flank them from the left. I'll cover you. Go." Reed nodded and motioned for his team to follow. Ethan laid down suppressive fire, buying them time to move. The air was thick with smoke and the deafening roar of gunfire. He could feel the heat of the sun on his back, but his focus remained on the fight. Minutes felt like hours as the battle raged on. Reed's team managed to outmaneuver the insurgents, taking them by surprise. With their flank exposed, the attackers began to retreat. Ethan saw his chance and ordered his men to advance. "Push forward. Don't let them regroup." The soldiers moved with precision, their training evident in every step. By the time the dust settled, the insurgents had been driven back. The outpost was secure, but the cost was high. 3 soldiers were dead, and several others were wounded. Ethan felt a pang of guilt as he looked at the casualties. These men had trusted him to lead, and now they were gone. As the medics tended to the wounded and the engineers secured the perimeter, Ethan found a moment to catch his breath. He sat on the edge of a crumbling wall, his hands trembling slightly. Reed approached, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. "Hell of a fight, sir," Reed said, offering Ethan a bottle of water. Ethan took it gratefully, drinking deeply before replying. "Yeah, but we lost good men today." Reed nodded, his expression somber. "That's the nature of war, isn't it? We do our best, but sometimes it's not enough." Ethan didn't respond. He knew Reed was right, but it didn't make it any easier. He glanced at the horizon, the setting sun casting an orange glow over the desert. For a moment, the world seemed peaceful, as if the violence of the day had been a distant memory. That night, Ethan wrote in his journal, something he'd started doing during his first deployment. It was his way of processing the chaos around him. He wrote about the ambush, the bravery of his men, and the weight of leadership. He wrote about the soldiers they had lost, vowing to honor their sacrifice. "Dear Emma," he began, addressing his wife back home. "Today was one of the hardest days of my life. We were ambushed on the way to the outpost. We lost 3 good men. I can't help but wonder if I could have done more. But I have to keep going. For them, for you, and for our little girl. Tell Lily I love her, and that her daddy will come home soon." Ethan folded the letter and placed it in his pocket. He would mail it when they returned to base. For now, he had a job to do. Over the next few days, the unit worked tirelessly to fortify the outpost. They set up defensive positions, conducted patrols, and gathered intelligence on enemy movements. The threat of another attack loomed over them, but they remained vigilant. Ethan spent much of his time with his men, offering words of encouragement and listening to their concerns. He knew that morale was just as important as strategy. He shared stories from home, making the soldiers laugh and momentarily forget the horrors of war. One evening, as they sat around a small fire, Reed asked, "Sir, why did you join the army?" Ethan thought for a moment before answering. "I wanted to make a difference, to protect the people I care about, and maybe, just maybe, to make the world a little better." Reed nodded, a small smile on his face. "You're doing that, sir, even if it doesn't always feel like it." Ethan looked around at his men, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. Despite the hardships, they were a family. They fought for each other, for their country, and for the hope of a brighter future. As the weeks turned into months, the outpost became a symbol of resilience. The soldiers faced numerous challenges, but they stood their ground. Ethan continued to lead with determination, drawing strength from the men beside him and the family waiting for him at home. The war was far from over, but Ethan held on to hope. Hope that one day, the echoes of battle would fade and peace would prevail. Until then, he would fight. For his brothers in arms. For his family. For the dream of a better tomorrow.